Hello and welcome to my weekly video blog, and today on A Vogel Talks Menopause I'm going to be talking about urinary incontinence in the perimenopause and menopause and what you need to know about it. If you like my tips and advice, then please subscribe and remember to hit the bell icon so you can be notified of all my new videos. Now, it's actually staggering that in the UK, 40% of women in the perimenopause and menopause and postmenopause will end up experiencing urinary incontinence. So it's an absolutely huge number of women that are going to find a lot of discomfort over the years. So I'm going to look at the causes, what happens, and also the things that you can do to help yourself. We know as estrogen starts to fall that this can affect bladder function generally. So your bladder can get weaker, so it can't hold as much. The bladder valve may get weaker, so you leak a little bit. It can also get more sensitive, so it can be irritated more by the things that you're eating and drinking. It can also be caused by pelvic floor weakness, and the pelvic floor muscles hold your bladder up. And we know too that having children can be a long-term contributory factor to this as well. So number one is stress incontinence. So this is very often due to, again, weakening of the pelvic floor muscles. So the bladder can shift position. So it can be affected more by any muscle action that goes on in this whole area. So stress incontinence would be where you leak, maybe if you laugh, if you're doing sports, if you're coughing, if you're lifting objects. Because if you're lifting, coughing, everything you're doing is working on the whole abdominal area. And that can actually cause your abdominal muscles and your diaphragm to press down. And all it's doing is it's squeezing the bladder, which just can't cope with that. Hence you end up dribbling or leaking. We've got urge incontinence. So this is a very sudden, intense feeling that you have got to go to the toilet. Very often there is no warning with this. So this can happen when your bladder is overactive or irritated. So this is a really common symptom after bladder infections such as cystitis, before the bladder gets rebalanced again. It often happens when you're sleeping, when you're drinking, and also it's one of these psychological ones. If you're listening maybe to meditation music and you can hear water tinkling, or you see a fountain, or you're walking by a river. So just the sound of water can suddenly make you want to run to the toilet. Number three is what they call an overflow bladder. So this is where your bladder is underactive. The valve is not opening when it should do. So you don't feel like you're going to the toilet, but your bladder's getting full. It can also be if you've had a damaged bladder, maybe during childbirth, or maybe some operation where the bladder's just not functioning particularly well and has lost some of its nerve function. It can also be if you've got a blocked urethra, although this can be quite serious. So this particular one tends to happen, you just go to the toilet, you will go very often, you'll keep needing to go to the toilet. You feel after you've been that you haven't actually emptied your bladder. And when you do go to the toilet, it tends to be just a little dribble or a weak stream rather than, emptying your bladder completely. This one can again be caused by a prolapse. If your bladder shifts and ends up being in a completely different position, then the whole physical mechanism of the bladder may be affected. So what can you do to help yourself here? Water, and it sounds a bit counterproductive, doesn't it? Here you are leaking and dribbling and having problems with your bladder, and I'm telling you to drink more water. The problem is if you get dehydrated, this is going to affect your bladder. Your urine is going to get very acidic. It's going to irritate your bladder. So it's going to make all these symptoms worse. And the other really important thing here is we need to keep the integrity and the size of the bladder. The more dehydrated you get, the more your bladder can shrink, the worse your symptoms are going to get. So keeping your bladder well flushed with water can be really, really helpful. If you haven't started drinking a lot of water and you start, do it slowly, because in these conditions, if you drink a lot of water all at once, yes, you're going to be running to the toilet again and again. So just introduce the water slowly over a few weeks, and that should make a difference. Exercising the pelvic floor muscles is so important. This is what's going to support your bladder and your womb and your bowel. And if these pelvic girdle muscles get weaker, you can end up with a complete prolapse. So your bladder, bowel and uterus can all shift position, and that can cause a lot of problems, both with periods if you're still menstruating, but also just bowel function as well. There are loads of exercises on YouTube, but I would really recommend going to see a practitioner. A few years ago, I actually went to a lecture by an experienced Pilates instructor who focused on women's pelvic health. And she said that she would get a lot of clients coming to her who had followed YouTube instructions, had got it completely wrong, had focused on the wrong muscles, and had actually ended up making things worse. So a Pilates instructor, you may only need 1 or 2 lessons. They can teach you which muscles to use to practice on a regular basis. And this can actually reverse some of the bladder conditions. For those of you out there who may be watching who are just hitting the perimenopause, start these exercises now, because the stronger your pelvic girdle muscles are as you go through the menopause, the less likely you are going to end up with any bladder problems. So really important to start this as early as you possibly can here. Remember the drinks, so less caffeine, less alcohol. You don't want to be drinking a lot of drinks that are going to irritate your bladder further. The problem here with this particular condition, that there isn't really any over-the-counter remedies that are going to help this. It's very much a structural one. So this is why doing things like Pilates is absolutely vital, because it's basically the only real way where you're going to get good results in this situation. There are some situations when we do advise that you speak to your doctor. So if you are finding that you're getting constant pressure, it feels like your bladder's pressurized the whole time, that could be a prolapse which does need investigating. If you find that you're in constant pain with this, either just general bladder pain, irritation, or it's painful when you urinate, and also if you get blood in your urine. So these are not situations that you should just be self-medicating. Please get this checked out by your doctor first. So I hope you found this one helpful. It's not really talked about in the perimenopause and menopause, but if 40% of women are getting this, then it's something that really needs to be brought to the fore. So if any of you have any tips on things that you've done to help this symptom, if you've had it, then please do share, because this is one that we really all need to talk about. So until then, I will see you next week for another edition of A. Vogel Talks Menopause.